Hello, this is the hatchetjob.com gaming netcast with a first impressions of Alien Frontiers, published by Clever Mojo Games and designed by Tori Neiman. And this is a sci-fi themed games, it's in the name, where players are trying to colonise a moon, and at the end of the game, the person who controls the most sections of the moon, the person who has the most colonies there, wins. Now this is a review copy, and the reason I'm not showing you a box as I normally do is because when it was sent to me, they'd actually run out of regular versions of the games. They didn't have any boxes left because it had been so popular, and so they gathered up spare pieces and sent them to me just in a regular cardboard shipping box. So I'm going to show you a picture of the game box now. This is what you should look for on the shelf if you decide after this or other reviews that the game is interesting to you. So as I said, the aim of the game is to take over the moon, and to do that you need to build colonies, and colonies are these little red pieces here. And I'm not going to do close-ups on these pieces, which are these colonies and grey cubes and yellow disc, orange discs, because they're not enormously interesting, but they're well made and they're colourful, and there's no quibbles about quality. But to build a colony you need resources. And the resources available in the game are mine or ore from the lunar mine, which is these grey cubes, and up there is solar power. And to collect the resources you need spaceships, and spaceships are represented by these chunky die, and there are 4 different colours because it's a 2 to 4 person game. So let's say I wanted to land at the lunar mine, or I wanted to go to the solar converter. What would I do? Well, at the start of my turn I'd get my dice and I'd roll them, and I'd see what the numbers were, and if I had the right numbers I could dock at those places. The premise is that you've got all these satellites, stations orbiting the planet, and only certain types of spaceships can go there. And what that means is the number dictates the type of spaceship. So if I wanted to go to this bit here, which is called the colony constructor, and over here I can pay lunar ore to construct a colony, and then I can put that colony on the planet and get a victory point. I have to put 3 dice down, and the dice all have to be of the same number, so 111, 444, or whatever it is. And if I wanted to get another spaceship, because of course I have to make a decision between do I want to use the resources in the game to build colonies, or do I want to use the resources in the game to build spaceships, which then allow me to get other resources. And actually what that does is increase the number of dice I get to roll. If I wanted to build a spaceship, what I could do is I could put 2 dice of the same value here, and then pay some solar energy and some ore to build a spaceship. And so you understand that I roll dice, and depending on what the outside areas say, if I have the right numbers I can put them down there. So let's say I roll enough dice to go here. Don't pay attention to the numbers, I'm just faking. What happens next? Well, I leave my dice there, okay? And then the next person comes along, next player, and he rolls his dice, and he gets to place his. Now, if he wanted to go here, well, I've already taken up one of the spaces. So let's say he decides he's the second space. Here we are. And then the third player comes along and rolls his dice, and he gets the right result, and he wants to go here but he can't, so he has to go somewhere else. So he goes there, and so on it goes. Each turn, depending on the player, the number of available spots is going down. But the game gets more interesting than that, because what happens is each player also gets and can either steal or buy alien artifacts, and these are things that allow him to kind of fiddle with the game rules a little bit. So let me show you some of those. So this is an alien artifact card, Alien City, nice 50s, 60s style illustration there, and it gives me 1 victory point, okay? And then there's this one, again, slightly Escher-like picture. What this does is if I roll my dice and I want to change the value of one of them, I can pay solar energy to say take a point from a 6 dice and put it onto a 4, and then that 4 becomes a 5, for example. And then over here I can stop people stealing my resources. So what that is if I go back to normal mode, this bit up here allows me to steal resources from other players. So if I have the right card I can stop that. And then I also get cards that do various things, that include things like I get to flip a die over from one side to the other, or I can change the value of it, or I can get to use it again. And what's interesting is that if I have the right cards and I have the resources, I can pretty much do whatever I want to on my turn. I'm not restricted to just one action, for example. What I can do is put it here, then use a card to take 2 dice, then I flip one of them, and then I put that there, and then I use this one here, then I get another card to do something else. And I can kind of bounce my way around doing different things. In addition, when I control a colony on the planet, and to control it means to have more of your colonies in there for everybody else than anyone else. So for example, I'd control this one here because I've got 2 reds and he's got 1 blue. When I control a colony, I get to take that card, and that gives me a bonus. And so the bonus might be, for example, that I have to use 1 less ore when I'm at the lunar constructor, or other things cost less money. And so not only does getting colonies win you the game because you have to have the most of them, they also give you bonuses. But again, going back to these cards, I might be able to mess around with people colonies, or I get these little doodads which I can put down, and basically they're like area of effects spells for one section of the moon. So I can say, well, even if you control this colony, you don't get to use that bonus. Or if I put something else over here, that means that nobody else can come and can put their colony there, so I know that I'm safe. What happens is, from this very simple rule set, which is basically, you got some dice, you roll them and see where you can put them, these cards and these things act as modifiers that, as I said, allow you to break the game rules. And so you get these really kind of crazy chains of events where you realise, oh, I can do this and I can do that, but I can't do this if I then spend this card over here. And when I was playing yesterday, I played the game I think 4 times in total, which is why it's the first impressions, and I played with 2, 3 and 4 players. When I was playing yesterday, one of the guys said, you never quite have enough dice, and he also says, there's so much to do. That is one of the strengths of the game, especially considering it has a very short rule book, like you can see, and reading this isn't that much more complex or complicated than the expression I've just given you, the explanation I've just given you now. But there's one kind of fatal flaw in this system, which I don't think one can say it's the fault of the game designer, but it's certainly something that potential consumers should be aware of. And that is, it's a breeding ground, it is a petri dish for analysis paralysis. Because what happens is, and the first 4-player game I played of this, actually the only 4-player game I played of this, I was playing with a guy and he rolled his pieces and he looked at his cards and he went, oh, you know that kind of person, don't you? You know the kind of person they'll just kind of hover. They'll just hover and then they'll mumble and then they'll take their dice away. And then they'll go, oh, and then they'll play a card and then they'll go over here. And it's like watching a really old person eat a sandwich. You know they need to do it, and this guy won the game. You know they need to do it. They need to eat the sandwich. They have to make good decisions. But it's not something that you particularly want to be around for, or that you want to witness. So that's what it's like. One other thing, actually, I should mention is that this scoring track here, what's cool about it, and this gets interesting in the later game when the moon is filling up and people are kind of bitching and fiddling with each other, not in a sexual way, is that when you get a colony or you put a colony down, your score goes up, but it kind of goes up in real time and people can be knocked down. So if I lose control of a colony, I move down. So this is always bouncing up and down. And what I found a few times is that at the end of the game, it's just this movement like that can scuppy you, and you think, oh man, if only I'd done this, or only if I'd spent my points on that. Going back to the simplicity of the game, I taught it to my mother, who is in her mid-60s, very sharp, cultured woman, but she doesn't play board games. And she had some problems with a game called Ascension, Chronicle of the Godslayer, I think it's called, which had a similar idea to this, in that you could do all sorts of crazy things on your turn. She couldn't quite grasp that, but for whatever reason, maybe it was the fact that the board is nicely laid out, so it's it's clear what you have to do, and the design is 1950s, 1960s, so it's not oppressive, it's thematic. But she understood this game. Admittedly, with a bit of kind of prodding, she figured out the combinations, and then she started being quite ruthless, actually, and coming up with quite nice little stratagems. And she said to me, "Do you mind if I do this?" Because she was able to scupper me and to kind of turn my plans inside out. And I said, "No, of course I don't mind you doing it. That's what you're supposed to do." Now, for some reason, as much as I respect this game in terms of game design and production quality, there's something about it that doesn't quite grab me. And I wonder if it's because it kind of, depending on how many people you play with, it tilts slightly from being not solitarish, but you can kind of sit in your own area and do your own thing, to being, and it tilts the other way, where it can get pretty cutthroat, and especially with up here, people can keep on stealing your resources, which means you can't do anything, and then or you can't do as much as you wanted to, and then you get a bit frustrated. And I think maybe for me, I like games with a clearer delineation, where it's kind of, okay, it's much more tilted towards the you can work on your own and nobody will fuck with you kind of thing, or it's the opposite, and it's very clearly, this is a game where you're going to kill each other. Just get on with it. So that's really my only complaint about this. It's a game that I'd recommend to people. It's a game that I'm happy to play. That if there's a kind of a lull in the conversation at a gaming day, nobody knows what to bring out, I'll say, well, shall we play this? I don't have any quibbles with mechanics. I think it's well constructed. I think it's a very elegant game design, and clearly it's a title that a lot of thought has got into, but it just doesn't quite hit it for me. But I can still objectively say it is a good game. So I definitely recommend investigating it, but if you have anybody in your gaming group who has analysis paralysis, then take that into account, okay? Really do take it into account. I think with one person you can kind of manage, but with two people, I wonder if the interactions we'll have on the game, and really the experience will be worth having to wait for those people to finish. Because even the best game, if it takes too long, you start to question whether you should have started playing it at all. So think about what gaming group you have. If they're fast decision makers, or if they're beginners, and you think they could, do with a game that gives them lots of options without taxing them too much on learning rules, by all means, definitely consider Alien Frontiers.